Thank you for downloading this Real Agriculture podcast. Excite your crops with inputs from Excite Bio. Access nitrogen and phosphorus with Excite Bio's lineup of inoculants and ag biologicals. Since 2010, they've been helping farmers harness the power of the soil. Learn more at excitebio.ca. That's XITEBIO.ca.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147 to Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Monday edition of the show. Thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. And, of course, a big shout-out as well to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. Today I'm broadcasting from, well, a boarding lounge at the Calgary Airport. What's new? Yes, we are here at the Calgary Airport today broadcasting the show. Hopefully you had yourself a great weekend. I am in transit, Calgary, Ottawa. I got a trip to Regina this week as well. Big convention, the end of this week. The Canadian Outstanding Young Farmers meeting is going to be in my hometown of Lethbridge. Looking forward to that. You're going to hear some of our coverage of that here on RealAg Radio and at RealAgriculture.com. Today on Agronomic Monday, well, we got lots to chat about. Lots of agronomic issues to discuss. We're going to be joined by Jordan Wade. He was Bern Tobin's guest on a recent Soil School episode talking about building organic matter with nitrogen fertilizer. We also have a product spotlight with Steve McQueen of Nachurs Alpine. And we're going to hear from Bryant Luers with LG Seeds about the needs and the benefits to hybrid diversification. And we'll finish up today with Colin Rush from Burgo. I also got a clip with Breanne Tidemann talking about weed resistance as well. So lots to chat about. We got a lot of guests today. Looking forward to it. If you have any feedback on today's program, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find Real Agriculture across all different social media platforms, or you can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Hey, with advancements in artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and precision agriculture, we are moving into a new era of innovation. Join agriculture industry leaders in Ottawa December 3rd through the 5th to explore the future of agriculture and how Canada can capitalize on its opportunities to be a global agricultural leader. Visit growcanadaconference.ca to register now. Make sure you check out Grow Canada. That is a great meeting. Okay, recently Amber Bell of Real Agriculture had a chance to talk to Breanne Tidemann about searching for a silver bullet against resistant weeds. This is for a recent Weed School episode that you can find at weedschool.com. Here's a conversation with Dr. Breanne Tidemann.
So we just finished up a meeting with Alberta Grains.
We did.
And you were sitting on a panel talking about exactly that, herbicide resistance.
You bet.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about the background and why this is important to growers.
Yeah, so we're seeing herbicide resistance become more and more of a problem. It's something that develops over time. And so as we spend more and more years applying herbicides, we start to see more and more herbicide resistance. Obviously that impacts the grower's bottom line in terms of, loss of yield from those weeds being in there and increased costs from trying to manage those weeds, and it just becomes a significant issue.
Right, and what are some of the weeds that are most apparent? I know today they were talking about wild oats.
Yeah, so the two sort of big ticket items, I guess, when it comes to resistant weeds would be wild oat and kochia. There's a number of other weeds with resistance. We've got glyphosate-resistant downy brome. We've got group 2 resistant broadleaves, a number of them, hemp nettle and wild mustard and all those kinds of things. There's a lot of different types of resistance out there. The ones that cause the most issues for growers on farm right now would be wild oat resistance to group 1 and 2 herbicides, and kochia resistance to, it seems like, everything.
Right. And so what are you recommending to growers to deal with it? Because, herbicides, that takes out a big portion of their toolbox, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not saying that you can't spray herbicides at all anymore. There's still herbicide products that are effective. If you're using herbicides, tank mixing them, making sure you have more than one effective mode of action wherever possible. We recognize that with resistance that becomes very challenging sometimes, but where possible, using more than one mode of action. And sometimes that's not even in the same tank as a tank mix, but sometimes that's a layering process where you put a preceding product on that has some residual and then follow it up with an in-crop to help manage what the pre-seed didn't capture. Those kinds of things as well. But then also diversifying that management strategy, looking at non-chemical techniques, whether you're focusing on your crop and doing things like increasing your seeding rate, diversifying your crop rotation, adding in some perennials or an early cut silage crop or a winter cereal if you're in a region where you can do that. Those types of strategies, or if you're more into something physical, incorporating a seed impact mill or a seed destructor. Weed seed destructor is often how folks refer to them. Something like that. There are other tactics out there, but it does take time, effort, and money to start incorporating them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you spoke about seeding rate, and I think that's one that a lot of growers don't really consider when they're thinking about herbicide resistance, right? So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's one that seems to surprise some growers, not all, but one thing that we just see, it's if you increase that seeding rate, you provide more crop competition against the weed. The weed has to work harder to have the same level of success. And so by increasing that seeding rate, especially in your crops like cereals where you might be running bin run seed, or certified seed that maybe doesn't have that same level of input cost as some of our other crops, it's a really great opportunity to increase that seeding rate. I'm a researcher. We work in seeds per square meter. Often in our cereals, we're in like the 400 seeds per square meter range, which would be like 40 seeds per square foot approximately. So,
right. And you're seeing that makes a big difference. Like, what about economically? Because I guess that would be the other argument against it, right?
Well, I guess it's a question of where do you want to spend your funds. I've had growers say, I'm spending up to $60 an acre on wild oat herbicides. That's a lot of money. Where are you getting complete control of those wild oats?
Right.
Maybe not. And so by increasing your seeding rate, there's an added cost, but if you can cut your herbicide applications down substantially too, and those herbicides last longer for more years, that might be a beneficial trade-off.
And then you have a potential bigger yield as well.
Exactly. There was one grower in the meeting with us there today that said he had read something about seeding rate from my predecessor, Neil Harker at Ag Canada, and decided to try it on his farm and was shocked at the impact that it had compared to, trying all the herbicide products, that just increasing the seeding rate made a huge difference on his wild oat populations. So.
Wow, that's incredible. And can you speak into a little bit of why we might be seeing more herbicide resistance today as opposed to 50 years ago?
Yeah, so herbicide resistance is essentially it's evolution on a time scale that we can see. And so when you apply a herbicide to a population, what we're essentially seeing is the survival of that one individual that has a genetic mutation or genetic change that allows it to survive. That one then will reproduce seed, and it becomes a slightly bigger portion of your population. And so over time, you see those individuals take up more of a proportion of your population. But it's also, resistance is just flat out, it's a numbers game. It's a game of probability. So the more weeds you're applying herbicides to, the more acres you're applying herbicides to, the longer time span that you're applying herbicides, the more selection pressure you're putting on, the more likely you are to find those individuals that are resistant.
That was Real Agriculture's Amber Bell talking to Dr. Breanne Tidemann about weed resistance. You can find that entire interview by going to wheatschool.com. We've got more Agronomic Monday, a fully loaded show coming up. We'll be right back right after this.
Joining me now with Genesis Fertilizers, Terry Drabuc. Now, in times of high demand, Western Canadian farmers often face price pressure from U.S. buyers because of that competition. How does Genesis Fertilizers plan to alleviate that competitive pressure and create more secure supply for Western farmers?
Well, we don't plan on lowering the price. So the model is around the investor farmers paying exactly what they would pay today. So we would be competitive in that high sales, low manufacturing costs. We plan on giving the profit back to the farmer as close to the cost of production as we possibly can. So they're entitled to the product and they get the profit from the product. And we call it a closed loop system, which is actually really critical. It's unlike any other model that you can see around the world, because as the owners, they're also the ones who will take the product from the plant.
For anyone who's interested, how Genesis Fertilizers plans to deliver this, where can they go?
The best place is our website, genesisfertilizers.com.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio here on this Monday. Hey, excite your crops with inputs from Excite Bio. Access nitrogen and phosphorus with Excite Bio's lineup of inoculants and ag biologicals. Since 2010, they've been helping farmers harness the power of the soil. Learn more by going to excitebio.ca. That's XITEBIO.ca. On a recent Soil School episode that is brought to you by Mosaic, Real Agriculture's Breanne Tobin had a chance to catch up with Jordan Wade of Syngenta to talk about the impacts of nitrogen on soil organic matter. Here's Breanne.
Does adding nitrogen, burn up organic matter, or does it actually enhance organic matter levels in the soil? To tackle this question and more, I am joined by Jordan Wade. He is the Soil Health Assessment Lead for Syngenta. Hi, Jordan. Hey, thanks for joining me on the Soil School.
Hey, Bernard. Really good to be here with you.
Hey, I want to dig into an article that you co-authored on this topic with Washington State University agronomist Andrew McGuire. Let's start with the idea, that nitrogen can burn up organic matter. Whether you're focused on soil health, soil sequestration, or soil, carbon credits. It's an important question. What does the literature tell us? And what have we learned in recent decades on the farm?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think that if we go back a couple of decades, this was an open question, and there was a little bit of controversy over it, maybe a lot of bit of controversy in the kind of early 2000s, where they thought, when we add nitrogen fertilizer, that it stimulates our soil microbes and it causes us to lose soil organic matter or soil carbon. And so, that was an open question over the last couple decades. And there was kind of viewpoints on each side. And as we've kind of progressed, I really think that we have a pretty definitive answer at this point of that.
Yeah. And what is that answer? Is it, how do we answer that question?
Right. Well, I think the short of it is that it definitely doesn't cause organic matter to be lost. I think, it either maintains it or it increases it in some instances. And there are kind of a couple different reasons for each of those. And a couple different lines of evidence that we look at to really prove that point, because it is a complicated question. Soils are hard.
Hey, so let's sort of drill through this, and maybe a place to start is how do you distinguish between soil organic matter and soil carbon, and why is that an important part of this conversation?
Yeah, it's a good starting place because we often use these terms interchangeably. Soil organic matter is the thing that I think a lot of farmers are used to seeing on their soil test. You see your soil organic matter levels, and that's one specific method. And what that does is that gets at your total organic matter. But then, as we start to kind of pick away at that and get a little bit deeper, we understand more about what is actually making up that organic matter. And it's about half of that is soil carbon. So if you have a 2% soil organic matter, you've got roughly, 1% of that, 1% soil carbon, so half of that. Then as we kind of move through, there are other compounds as well. There's hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And I think that sulfur as well. But I think that nitrogen component is the one that, will really be important for our conversation today.
Yeah, let's talk more about soil microbes. You know, they play a huge role in this conversation. And you note that they need more nitrogen than is available in that soil organic matter. In this case, how much demand is there for nitrogen, fertilizer application, and how important is that contribution?
Right. So microbes, they are so important to so many different transformations that are happening in the soil. And, they have so many different roles that they're playing and processes that are going on at the same time. And I think really the kind of fundamental tension here that we're going to get at is that soil organic matter, right? So we've got the whole soil organic matter. Of that, about half of that is soil carbon. And soil organic matter on average has about 10 parts of carbon to 1 part of nitrogen. And that's somewhat fixed, and there are, fluctuations around that. But microbes need more nitrogen relative to how much is in soil organic matter. So if you think of it as microbes have 8 parts of soil carbon for every 1 part of nitrogen. So there's like a ratio in general in the microbes. And so what ends up happening is if microbes are kind of trying to build and reproduce and have a larger microbial community, they start eating that soil organic matter, right? That is their food. And so because there is less proportionally nitrogen in soil organic matter, what they end up doing is that they can burn off some of that soil organic matter in search of that nitrogen. They're scavenging for nitrogen. Mm-hmm. So this is where that nitrogen fertilizer really plays an important role, because what it does is it helps even out that balance a little bit more. And so then microbes aren't having to scavenge as much from the soil organic matter, and it's readily available there. Those forms of nitrogen that we add in fertilizer are readily available to both plants and to microbes. And so what they're doing is it helps bring them back into balance. And so that's really kind of the fundamental thing that's happening here is that microbes are looking for nitrogen. And when we add nitrogen fertilizer, makes it so they don't find that in our soil organic matter.
Hey, let's talk about that activity, that that increase in microbial activity, is happening. But what about the long term? What's the long term impact on soil organic matter?
Yeah, and so I think that's a really important point to bring out is, we always have these short-term sort of trends, and then we have longer-term trends. And I think that's part of where the controversy on this really started, is that when you add nitrogen fertilizer, all of a sudden you get more microbes, you're more active, right? And so in the short term, that looks like, we are losing soil organic matter, right? As the microbes are eating away at that soil organic matter to build more microbial biomass, they're respiring, they're breathing out CO2. And so we look at that and we say, this must be a loss of soil carbon, a net loss. But the thing is, when we kind of expand our lens to look at longer timescales, multiple years, and then we use some other different methods, we start to see that over time, that soil organic matter either stays the same with that synthetic nitrogen fertilizer, or it can even build sometimes. Yeah. And so, that's part of where that controversy arose from. And I think that pretty definitively now that we have found that short-term effect does not persist over the long term. I often think of it as like, I'll go out and I'll go for a run and I'll get tired, right, in that short term. But over the long term, I'm getting healthier, right? And I'm able to run longer next time and things like that. It's that short-term, long-term tension that we have. Microbes are the same way.
Yeah. Hey, is it fair to say that the addition of nitrogen plays a key role due to the fact that it drives plant growth and creates more biomass and residue?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways that nitrogen fertilizer is causing this organic matter effect, or rather lack of effect. And so it's taken a couple decades to actually tease those things out, one from the other. And so there's kind of two different mechanisms that we have started to see be pretty clearly borne out. So the first one is, as you mentioned, just more biomass, right? We add more fertilizer and you get more crop residue, and then microbes can process that. But, that's actually doesn't disprove the other short-term hypothesis, right? It doesn't say that short-term effect isn't persisting. it just says, well, we're adding more soil carbon. So then people have started to kind of continue working on that. And we use some isotopic methods, which help us differentiate the age of the soil carbon. And what we've started to see is that what it actually does is it increases that younger soil carbon, the new fresh residues coming through that soil system. But then it also helps those older soil carbon molecules to stick around for longer. So there is actually both of them happening at the same time. And I think something that's really important here is that when we're looking at that effect, agricultural systems are very different from natural systems in a lot of ways. But this is actually one effect that we see in both, which is a really interesting, it doesn't happen very often in science that we see, such lockstep agreement between those. And so, when people look at natural systems where we have atmospheric nitrogen deposition, they're seeing kind of the same effects mirrored as we're seeing in our agricultural systems when we add synthetic nitrogen. Now, those are at completely different rates, but those effects and those mechanisms are still kind of the same in both, which to me is like beautiful. It never happens in science that our natural and our managed systems are kind of showing the same thing.
So in a sense, I guess, wrapping it up kind of, you're actually increasing that new soil organic matter and decreasing the erosion of it as well.
Yeah. And so that's really, what we've started to see. And there's been so many different ways that we've looked at this, so there's that isotopic method. There's also different ways of looking at organic matter quality. And we use these long-term side-by-side experiments with nitrogen rates. And so what we start to see is that those nitrogen rates, there's changes in organic matter quality. We see more of the stabilized organic matter, as well as more of that fresh organic matter, which again parallels that other method, that isotopic method. And so it's really nice to see that kind of all coming together, which, shows, that's why I think that, we can put that prior nervousness over synthetic nitrogen burning organic matter. We can pretty well put that to bed at this point. We've got mechanisms in both natural and managed systems, and long-term evidence kind of accruing here.
Yeah. Hey, that leaves kind of like the final question. Does nitrogen, get enough respect? We know, as you say, it can have a big impact on crop yield, and we know, we have to manage it effectively to protect the environment. But do we fully appreciate, I guess, the power of nitrogen in our soils?
Oh man, I hope that we do. I would say, I'm a nitrogen lover, and so I hope that everyone else is. But it's very possible that people are undervaluing how important nitrogen can be. It's a really dynamic element. You add it to your soil, and there's so many different reactions that happen, and they're all biological, which makes it very complicated. But I think the real thing is that nitrogen fertilizer has a really important role to play. And we really need to make sure that we're using it responsibly. That's a really important piece. But with that responsible use, there's actually some potential benefits, and we can keep that organic matter in the ground and all of the other co-benefits that happen with that. Things like erosion, moisture, et cetera. And so we can really leverage some of that, the co-benefits of that nitrogen fertilizer for other good uses that agriculture will need to remain resilient.
Right. Well, hey, Jordan, some great stuff. Appreciate you taking some time to join us on the Soil School and Chat Nitrogen.
Hey, RealAg listeners, Cantera Seeds has a new hybrid. It's a darn good one too. It is CS4100 LL Liberty Link. It is available for the 2025 growing season. Make sure you go to Cantera.com to find out more. We'll be back with more of RealAg Radio. Next, we'll be talking to Steve McQueen of Nachurs Alpine right after this.
Advanced canola trait technology is here. And it's soon to be the talk of the town. Optimum Glide delivers excellent yield potential and agronomic trait performance. Improved crop safety. Enhanced weed control. And a wider window of application. You're going to want to see this. Learn more at OptimumGlyne.ca.
Here's what Wheat Pete's word on RealAgriculture.com is all about in under 30 seconds.
It's wheat time. I love wheat time. I love wheat. Get that sulfur on. Get that seeding rate right. Get that nitrogen on your wheat right. Get that protein. Know your variety. Know when you need to put fungicides on. Pick your product. Pick your rate. Do the right job. Get this wheat crop right. Have a nice day. Grow amazing wheat.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomists with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio. It's now time for a product spotlight with Nachurs Alpine. And we're joined right now. He is with Nachurs Alpine. It is Steve McQueen. Steve, how are we doing today?
I'm absolutely phenomenal. We've got great weather, 14 degrees Celsius here in Ontario. So that's a little better than it is some places.
Yeah, you know what? Can't complain. The end of November, it could be a whole lot worse, although you can feel old man winter is on the doorstep. It's coming. It's coming. Okay.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're going to talk today about potassium. Okay.
Yep.
So as you talk to some of your colleagues and customers across Canada, what are soil samples showing us when it comes to potassium supply?
Yeah, so the more we look at potassium, the more we realize that we're showing deficits probably across almost every one of the provinces. We're running, at critical levels to below, some places 15 to 20% below. And I think some of these numbers are pulled off as we do more soil sampling. We're probably finding out just a lot to more alarming situations and areas for sure.
So what's contributing to that? Like what is creating this draw on potassium supply?
Well, number one is we have some really neat increased yields in certain parts of the country, and I travel across all of Canada. So I believe that we saw some really neat yield increases, and I would say that we always are pretty quick to keep up with that with nitrogen, followed by phosphorus, and potassium gets that to be that little bit of lag behind. The second thing is when we're running across a lot of the West where we've seen a lot of drought, the higher the less moisture we get, we seem to tighten up the clays, so the availability starts to fall off. So there's a couple things there. It's not just that we may have some high readings, but are we actually finding it available for the plants too, right?
Yeah, that availability is a key part of that, right? And I think sometimes that's missed on people when they're looking at some of those reports.
Yep, exactly right. So, and looking at, when you start looking, your parent materials, understanding your clay base, what type of clays you have and how it actually hangs on to that little single positive potassium ion there.
So why do we continue to see lower tissue samples where potassium parts per million is sufficient and above?
Yeah, and that's always the big kicker where people say, well, I have tons of potassium. I'm going but it's not showing in the plants. And there's probably several reasons. First of all, plants, they take up what's soluble. So it has to be soluble in the soil. It has to be plant available. And there's so many things battling for space within the CECs of soil. Calciums, magnesiums, they just are a little bit bigger. So we're just finding that the plant is not able to access, probably more than 1.5 to 2% of what potassium is showing available on the soil sample. The second thing is, what we always can forget is, as we're looking to have that taken up in the plant, of course, we need moisture to help that whole aspect. Potassium is the key to water management. But if our boron is out of play, then what happens is there's an imbalance and the cellular structure starts to collide. It actually collapses, elongates instead of, duplicating itself. And we really slow down the xylem flow. The transportation of potassium is put on hold.
Oh, Steve, I probably should have started with this, but just a reminder: what does potassium do for the plant? What gap is it fulfilling in helping that plant to really succeed?
Yeah, so potassium is pretty cool. When you harvest a crop and it leaves and all the straw stays behind, not much potassium leaves your field. but it's responsible for the uptake and the facilitation of all nutrition. So I call it the Uber in the plant. It trucks things around. It's actually accesses like 60 different, basically enzymes that really help all the pathways open up within the plant. It's responsible for, water management within the plant, controlling trigger pressure for stomata, closing, opening, that whole management. So it's key to pretty well everything. It's the nutrient that helps manage all other nutrients. And when we're done at the end of the year, what's really interesting, it comes out in a straw, but it's water soluble. So where we have no-till, guess what? It actually leaches out and stays on top, and we stratify way more. So when you are doing your soil samples, it's really neat. Maybe you should see how much is in the top 1 to 2 inches and even missing in the root zone when you do that sample.
Okay, so we've identified the issue here. From Nachurs Alpine perspective, what is how do you contribute to the solution?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things we do. We know that potassium has a lot of sources, whether it's potassium chloride, potassium, nitrates. What we do is we actually have a product that is a potassium acetate. So our point is we need to make sure we have soil K in place. But when we actually put our potassium acetate on that, it's the acetate molecule that helps pick up the metabolism within the plant. I guess the key part is that plants are majority made up of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. And that acetate molecule is a carbon, hydrogen, oxygen molecule. So it's a natural plant metabolite, helping the plant to move nutrients more efficiently. And the final thing it does, it actually helps feed microbiology in the soil. So then the microbiology can be more alive to help extract and farm more of your soil nutrient to increase plant uptake.
Steve, if somebody wants more information on the portfolio at Nachurs Alpine, where do they go? How do they find it?
Yep, you can hear in Canada. You can just go to www.albinepfl.com and pull that up. If you hit Nachurs Alpine Solution, that will actually pull us to our website. We'll give you lots of information there, who to follow up on.
Yeah, lots of solutions, products, both sides of the border, Canada and the United States. Nachurs Alpine, very well known. Steve, thank you so much for joining us here today on RealAg Radio. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Great to be with you again. Take care.
And we'll be right back on RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM, right after this quick break. I get to spend every day talking to farmers in the ag industry through RealAgriculture.com and RealAg Radio. But nothing is more fun than speaking to an audience live and in person. If you're planning an ag event, book a Real Agriculture speaker to make it a successful and memorable experience. Email shaney@realagriculture.com and you can book myself or any other Real Ag personality to speak at your event. Bring your audience all the fun, insight, and energy of Real Agriculture.
There's a reason we call it the Corn School. Videos on everything from planter setup to weed control, field trial results, and the latest yield strategies. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com has the information and advice you need to help you succeed. Brought to you by Pride Seeds and BASF. Corn School episodes are available at cornschool.com, from RealAgriculture.com, or as a podcast in your favorite podcast app. Check out the latest Corn School episode today.
This segment on RealAg Radio is brought to you by Blackhawk EVO from New Farm. Blackhawk EVO is the next evolution in pre-seed burn-down herbicides powered by Duplazin. Blackhawk EVO delivers fast, flexible, and complete control of early germinating and winter annual broadleaf weeds. When I was in Kansas City for the NAFB conference a couple weeks ago now, I had a chance to catch up with Bryant Luers, who works with LG Seeds. As LG Seeds is a part of the Agri-Reliant family. And we talked about selecting a corn hybrid and the need to diversify your choices and the reasons for that. Here's my conversation with Bryant Luers of LG Seeds. Bryant, how are we doing?
Doing wonderful. Good to be here, Shaun.
Yeah, it's great to chat with you. Okay, so we're going to talk about the need, the necessity, the value in diversifying our seed choices. Okay, first of all, what exactly does that mean?
Man, that can mean a lot of different things. I mean, when I think about diversifying your portfolio, if I think about a specific farmer, let's say your average farmer farms 800 acres in this instance, right? I mean, you don't want to plant the same hybrid on every single acre. That's not going to be mitigating your risk very well. So as a grower, as a farmer out here, I mean, we really need to be looking at multiple different genetic packages to really mitigate that risk, but while also shooting for some really high yield potential to maximize your ROI, maximize your profit on every single acre. So for me, it's breaking it down on a per acre basis and really figuring out what's the best product or maybe multiple products for this acre.
So how do I know if I'm diversifying my seed choices or not? Like, right? So are we talking different heat units? Are we talking different brands? What exactly does that diversification really look like?
It can mean a lot of different things. I mean, it could be a trait diversification if you're looking at VT2s, if you're looking at Smart Stacks Pro. Power Core is a new trait coming into the industry, so it could mean trait diversification. It could also mean disease diversification. So if we look back at the last couple of years, right, tar spot specifically has been a huge point of emphasis across a lot of the Corn Belt here. So, I think disease diversification is probably one of the bigger points of emphasis we've talked about here in the last few years. And so when we look at the LG Seeds lineup, there's a broad variation, and we give really good ratings. We spend a lot of time kind of parsing through this stuff as we're launching new products. And so I think disease diversification is probably a huge discussion going forward.
This is key stuff that you should be talking to your seed rep about, right? To really make sure that, because a lot of times we can be fooled where we think we've got some diversity, like, oh yeah, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and then you find out at the end of the day, especially on a disease risk perspective, right? Because maybe you're using two different brands, but actually they've got the same disease package. You're actually planting the same thing, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, for sure. So, just having that conversation with your local LG Seeds rep or whoever you trust really to help make decisions on your operation, to really break it down on that field by field, farm by farm basis to really do the best for the grower at the end of the day, right? That's what we're all here for at LG Seeds, to really help those growers maximize potential, maximize profit while mitigating that risk. So, yeah, talk to your local LG Seeds agronomist, your local LG Seeds DSM. We can really help you make the best decisions for your operation.
In terms of number of different hybrids on the farm, and this can depend, obviously, if your farm is spread over a very vast geography, the answer will be different. But for the typical customer, how many different hybrids are you seeing them plant?
I would say in LG Seeds, most of our customers are probably in that 3 to 5 range on different hybrids. It obviously does depend on size of grower there. And, if I look at so I'm from Iowa, if I look at a central Iowa grower, there's not a lot of variation in some of their grounds, so maybe that number's lower. If I go to southern Iowa, we see a lot of variation in soil types. And so as the variation in soils, variation in productivity goes up, the number of products goes up as well.
Are we having fun with tar spot yet? It seems like, I don't know how many interviews I've done about tar spot. It is, I don't care if you're in the U.S. or you're in Canada. This is one that has people very much, I think, very concerned and trying to sort it out, not only from the farmer perspective on best management practices, but also from a seed company perspective.
Absolutely, and fun might not be the word I would use for that.
Well, I was being sarcastic, Bryant. I was being sarcastic. There's better ways to have fun than dealing with tar spot.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. But no, you're exactly right. I mean, tar spot has been a massive topic of conversation. Doesn't really matter who you talk to, where you're at. It's huge. And so, like I said, at LG Seeds, we do an extensive testing network on these things before they get launched. So being comfortable, being confident, and having a really good idea how these things will react when we put them out in commercial fields on a grower's operation is huge, because they want to know that information before they're planting these products, right? So being able to have confidence when we go out to the growers and say, yes, this product is going to perform really well in the presence of tar spot, that's huge.
So you're testing how your own varieties show resistance or tolerance of tar spot. Are you also testing which fungicides act best on your genetics as well?
Yes, we are. So if you look at our testing network, we have some fungicide trials built into those. So we have a good idea when products get launched, how they'll respond in the absence of in the absence of fungicide, as well as in the presence of fungicide. So, no matter what these guys are doing as far as management practices. I feel like we can really hone in on that and select a product that's right for their operation.
Well, very cool stuff. Hey, Brent, really appreciate you joining me here today at NAFB.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shaun. Appreciate it.
That was Bryant Luers of LG Seeds. And again, we're talking about corn in terms of diversification of hybrid selection, but we think about varieties across really any crop type. Corn, soybeans, wheat, canola, pulse crops, probably cotton, rice, I don't know. But I would think the majority of crops that people are growing in North America, having some diversification in that variety selection is really key and provides a lot of benefits. Make sure you do homework and research, even though, don't assume that because you're buying from maybe 1, 2, or 3 different seed companies that there's a diversification of the genetic pool. You got to make sure and do your homework and talk to your ag retailer, your agronomist, whoever you're working with. But besides that, there really, if you can accomplish it, there is some benefits, especially if we look at things like disease control. Obviously, also gives you an opportunity to maybe try some different traits as well. And, of course, maybe some of the length of the variety, days to maturity, heat units, depending on which kind of crop type we're talking about. So, interesting stuff there from LG Seeds and Bryant Luers. Let me tell you about SGS, delivering reliable agricultural lab testing for your crop, soil, feed, water, and seed. SGS is uniquely positioned, ready to elevate your business in Canada and the United States. Call us now at 1-800-952-5407. We'll be right back with more of RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147. If you're serious about agriculture, RealAg's got you covered.
For over 10 years, we've listened to and shared what producers have to say about everything from policy to agronomy from coast to coast.
Keep up with the latest in Canadian agriculture at RealAgriculture.com through daily newsletters and check out our YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us in the RealAg community as we continue to cover and serve North American agriculture.
Infuse some energy into your next corporate event, customer meeting, or conference with RealAg Radio, Canada's national agriculture radio show. Create a unique experience at your next event with host Shaun Haney, broadcasting RealAg Radio live on SiriusXM, featuring exciting guests, captivating interviews, and the latest news from the agriculture community. Contact advertising at realagriculture.com or call 587-787-1795 to book your on location with RealAg Radio today.
The next generation of Brandt U-Trough augers is here. They can move up to 9,000 bushels per hour, even in the harshest of conditions. Visit your local Brandt dealer today or go to brandt.ca. A company that has had a number of big product announcements, like a flurry of them, here in the last month is Bourgault. And for a lot of farmers in Western Canada, very familiar with Bourgault. It is definitely a hometown story out of St. Bruce, Saskatchewan. But there's Bourgault products all over parts of the United States as well. Recently, Bern Tobin had a chance to catch up with Bourgault's Colin Rush. Here's their conversation.
Now, you've just returned from Arizona, where you met with your dealers and showed off some new products. So, tell us about that meeting.
Well, that meeting was a couplefold. It was a celebration of our 50 years in business, which we invited our Bourgault dealer network and personnel to join us. But more importantly, it was kind of a bit of a transformational dealer meeting as well, because we were launching not only new products, and we do that every year, but really some transformational technology, which we'll get into it. So we had never done anything of this scope and magnitude ever. In fact, we had never launched a product truly outside of Saskatchewan. So this was a big deal for us. And we had such amazing attendance. We had over 500 attendees. We had dealer locations from Bourgault dealers representing from all Canada and the U.S. I think it was over close to about 170 locations that represent Bourgault in their sales. And we really talked about this transformational of what we call Bourgault 1.0, which was everything that got us there to the first 50 years, to what we call Bourgault 2.0, which is this transformational thing where we step on the accelerator and we go with new offerings, new technologies, new agronomic flexibility tools for our customers.
Right. So, hey, let's get into it. I had a chance to read a couple of the press releases, and I noticed, several references to capacity without complexity. Tell us about that philosophy and how it's reflected in the Bourgault lineup.
Well, I think it's no secret. If you look at any producer's bottom line, they are looking for that productivity. They have trouble getting labor. They look at distances they have to travel. They look at their field conditions that they have to go there. And let's not beat around the bush. We've had a lot of what I call capacity for a number of years. This isn't our first our products that we've rolled out that are large. But in some cases, and we've had some pushback from our customers, and we've learned and evolved our products, is the simplicity wasn't there. That they were sometimes complex to unfold or get from the transport position into the field position. Some of the things we used in terms of our operator interfaces and controls, they were hard to learn, and they had all kinds of capacity, and they had all kinds of different features and benefits, but they weren't what I would call intuitively simple. So this was really a theme of what we talked, this capacity without the complexity of maybe things we've done in the past, just simple, and also taking that as well to the technology side is how can you get the most productivity, easy to learn new operators, maybe somewhat untrained field help that joins the farms in the spring and the fall. And this is what we drove that message through.
Yeah. Hey, let's dig into some of these new products. Let's start with the new 7-plex folding 3545 Paralink hoe drill. It comes in 80 to 100-foot configurations. I guess the story starts here with productivity, right?
It really is. So, this wasn't the first 100-foot drill that we have out here, but what we have learned, even the evolution of products, this is not a compromise. This is a true Bourgault product. This is the same thing. If you want to put that 350 pounds of product down the mid-row, whether it's urea, and then another 150 pounds of product and starter fertilizer with your seed, that machine is going to be able to do it without any compromises. So what are we looking at? Well, we've had a wingback design fold, and it was a complex wizard to go through. But this machine just basically folds like a traditional machine. You either push or pull that lever to either fold or unfold that process in the field and just wait for it to finish. That is as simple as it gets to move that. Now, is that a new thing? No, there's large machines out there. But to do it, what I call in a cube of steel, our engineering team absolutely outdid themselves here. When you see a picture or a video of this thing folding and unfolding, you're like, how is that even possible? Knowing that there has to be hoses run and air kits. And that's not all we did. This is a large machine. We put ridiculous amounts of flotation on here under a new high float axle. We lengthened the frame in order to give it more trash flow, so you aren't stopping and having to basically raise your openers, basically circle around and then go back into the same row. Everything we've done is to maximize that productivity. Some of the producers running this unit here with our prototypes. We're just amazed. They were up to 56 acres per hour, and that was including their fills. So that was stopping to fill. That was their average. 56 acres per hour is what they average with their fills. If you take their fills out of it, they're well north of 60 acres per hour in productivity on the large 100-foot. But again, that capacity without the complexity was key. We've added a ton of features here. And there's one more, and it's kind of a neat one when people learn about it, is who's going to buy a used 100-foot? It's obviously the guys, the large producers that want a new 100-foot, but, is there always a market for those large machines? Well, our engineering team made this thing simple. Whether you do it at the farm or at the dealership when they take it on trade, they can knock off the 10-foot outer sections and make this a 5-plex 80-foot machine on the 100. And on the 84-foot 7-plex, they can knock those off and make it a 66-foot 5-plex. So again, we're giving maximum configurability, for those producers and for the dealers that have to do business with Bourgault.
Hey, let's talk about the wing tank, an option you'll be offering with the 2026 9000 series air carts. What do we have here? More capacity, right?
More capacity. It's this one's a little trickier than just even the drill side, because usually what people say is, well, if you add more product, you're going to add more weight, more compaction. And that's a huge concern. We're already kind of maximum rubber under our 9000 I-Series carts. However, what is neat about the wing tank is we've had a saddle tank forever. That is now at 44 bushels. It often comes with a bulk boom to basically lift those mini bulk bags off of a flat deck and basically dump them in, and as well as a pallet storage area. But the very neat thing is this now is at the same level on that side tank. We call it a wing tank now, that can be loaded with the conveyor. We take all that bulk boom off the pallet storage, and now there's actually 66 bushels of usable capacity, and that's usable capacity even with that Class D canola. We're actually closer to, I think, 70 or 72 bushels of actual. But now, would you believe it? There's more capacity. Lots of guys are using even a tandem truck to end dump canola in now. And if they want that option, they're actually getting less weight, believe it or not. So when you put that on, compared to the bulk boom, the saddle tank full, and the storage, it's actually 2,500 pounds lighter.
Hey, let's talk about technology. We're seeing an evolution here. You're becoming a technology company. Tell us about Bourgault Intelligent Control, a wireless seed controller.
Well, no secret there. I mean, there's been competitors out there with wireless-based, tablet-based seed controllers for a while. And we certainly could have, caught up. We could have put those in. It is one thing that our customers have been requesting for a long time, our dealers as well. But what we decided was we were looking at the future. We were looking at saying, well, what is those key drivers? And one thing we looked at was the data integration. We looked at, in mixed fleet operations where people are running one, brand of mainline tractor, whether it's John Deere or CNH or Claas, and they're looking at Bourgault integration. It was not, I would say, easy to get the data back into those data operation centers, whether it's JD Ops or Field Ops with CNH. So what we've actually done now with Bourgault Intelligent Control, at least in this first iteration here, this will be a completely seamless integrated into those the tractor task controllers. What that means is the tablet, which is wireless, which is great, will actually just do the advanced, what I call drill functions. They'll do Dynacal, Packmaster, or Liftmaster, basically, and they'll control the metering. Everything else, the path planning, the machine-to-machine communication, the telematics, the section timings, and even variable rate or manual rates will actually be done by the tractor. So what that does is that gives you complete integration. Customers are already used to this with everything from boundaries with their tractors, whether it's with John Deere or CNH, same thing with the sprayers, same with the combines. This now allows us to basically leap ahead to that full integration with mainlines. And again, huge capacity, but more importantly, we designed this entire app around simplicity. There was a quote, I think it's actually in the press release, it says that this is not your grandfather's seed controller, but he could run one. And that's exactly what we saw out of Phoenix last week. Is we had older salesmen, older dealer principals that came, even some customers that said, hey, I could do this. And for that to be on the Bourgault system, let me tell you, that was a quantum leap in terms of us throwing out the book and starting fresh with a white piece of paper on how to make this thing simple.
That was Real Agriculture's Bern Tobin talking to Colin Rush from Bourgault, and like I said, a flurry of press releases as of late. Encourage you to go to RealAgriculture.com and check out some of the pictures and the videos and some of the B-roll in that interview showing off some of those big announcements from Bourgault, and congrats to Bourgault on their big anniversary. Great stuff. I stopped by the Bourgault booth and had a great chat with Colin Rush during Egg in Motion in just outside Saskatoon in the summer. And if I remember correctly, too, I gave them the best booth snack award. They had some dynamite beef jerky, if I remember correctly. Great stuff. And congrats to Bourgault. Manage weeds early in your canola cereals and pulses with Conquer Goldwing, Thunderhawk, and Blackhawk EVO, powered by Duplasm technology, advancing the unstoppable superpower of pre-seed burn down from New Farm. Find out more by going to newfarm.ca. Now, if you have any feedback on today's show, we'd love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also find Real Agriculture across all the different social media platforms. You're also more than welcome to, we'd love to have you call the Real Ag feedback line. We invite you to do so. It is 855-776-61 147. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio, and we'll, of course, chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.